We mentioned a couple of things about Take-Two. So they actually had their quarterly results. So overall, on a high level, the revenue by platform, this is the interesting one, 52% of their revenue at the moment, naturally because they haven't launched GTA, 52% comes from mobile. Consoles 37%, and other PC and other make 11% of their revenue. Their net revenue is almost $3 billion, and that was up from 2.7. The total net revenue was 5.6, and it used to be 5.4, so pretty much the same one. But what's interesting is that they reported that they earned, half of the revenue coming from mobile during the financial years, and Halo 2 of the Rolik hits driving the growth. So Color Block, Jam, and Match Factory, both made in Istanbul. In the PR, they talk about these as Zynga games, which they technically are. But we've been at Rolik Studios. We know where the magic is being made. It's over there. And then they also told about another game, which is Match Factory, also from Istanbul, and that it continues to perform really well. And CEO Strauss Zelnick was also bullish on Zynga's direct-to-consumer business, aka web shops, aka Dom can roll the clip and let people know what the best in the business looks like. Anyways, so Take-Two did say that they expect mobile revenue to be overall fairly flat. It plans to launch 5 new games in the next fiscal year, including WWE 2K, and that will be launched on Netflix games. So that's the one that's going to break the bank.
Well, also they announced $1 billion equity financing follow-on to pay down debt. Yeah. But the other thing that was kind of buried in this report is something that I'm clearly focusing on way too much on the negative, but so they've written down their acquisition of Zynga for the second time. So they put together a $3.7 billion impairment charge against or write down of the Zynga acquisition, which is coupled with another $2.5 billion from last year, an impairment charge against this acquisition, which is a whopping $6.21 billion write down of the Zynga acquisition, right? So almost half of the value of what they did on the acquisition was a $12 billion acquisition was written down over the last 2 or 3 years. So it is exactly what I said when this thing was announced, that they should have waited like a few months and they would have got this thing for half as much as they purchased it for. So my question to Mr. JP Morgan and Mr. Goldman Sachs, are you going to take half of the fees and bring that back to the shareholders after justifying this bullshit valuation for this company, right? Their transaction fee should be cut in half because they wrote fairness opinions to the board of directors of each of these companies that this was a fair value for this company when it was clearly not. Now, having said that, if I take a step back, I have to acknowledge the fact that since this deal was done, the market cap of Take-Two is up 33%. So they are benefiting somewhat from Zynga's predictable revenue stream and scale. But I think personally, it's more related to the GTA thing than anything to do with Zynga's business. But this is what the reality of this transaction. It was an absolute disaster. It is the second worst acquisition in the history of video games, which obviously Glue was the worst. And I think
why is the Glue worst?
Because every single piece of value was gone within like 6 months on that deal, right? It was crazy, dude. That shit was criminal, dude. That shit was criminal.
Just because I realize I'm not 100% sure I know what impairment of goodwill means. Let me see if I'm understanding this right, and Cress, you can help educate me and through me, the audience, on what a goodwill impairment is. So they bought Zynga for $12 billion. And now you're saying they've done a goodwill impairment of about $6 billion. So what that means is that when they bought Zynga, they thought it was justified that it would add $12 billion of value, of revenue to their business over some period of time. And now they're saying, oh, well, it looks like maybe they'll deliver $6 billion over that period of time. And we're acknowledging now that we lost or we overpaid $6 billion on this transaction.
Basically.
Is that close?
That's close enough. On the books, like they are now writing down the value of that acquisition, right? Because things on the ground have changed, the financial performance or market conditions have changed. Clearly they overpaid for this asset, and that's why they're writing it down.
Right. And so it's possible they could continue to write down goodwill. Is there more down to go on this?
It's possible. I actually didn't look into it if they have more on the balance sheet, but I think they're done. You know, like I would hope anyway. Like, I think the Glue acquisition was probably too small to justify, writing it down, but maybe they did write it down. I actually don't know. I didn't look at EA.
Okay. One more for Turkey. So this was like a little piece of news, and then I got curious. So I feel like if Ethan, you're the king of rabbit holes, I feel like I'm the queen of puzzle rabbit holes. So there is a mobile developer called Tail Monster, and they raised $7 million in a seed round. And granted, I'm not a founder. I don't really understand like the Series A, C, B, whatever. It sounded like a big number to me. I was like, oh, that's a lot of millions. Like, that's pretty good for like a mobile studio. And they had launched a game called Match Valley, and it was, a match 3 title. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to play this. So I did. And I wanted to see, maybe Eric, after I give this summary of the game, you comment on whether it is a good amount, large amount, small amount, whatever. But when I was complaining earlier about we need to see more innovation in the market, this is more what I'm talking about. So I played the game. It's very early. It's not a huge amount of downloads. I think it was 8,000 downloads since it soft launched in September 2024. It's made about 10 grand. Small, very small. But the mechanic, they took merch, they took abilities that you find in like Archero, and they took the battles, not exactly as you would find them in a Royal Kingdom or a Clash Quest or, Simon's Cat Match. But it was the most interesting game in terms of mechanics I've played in a while. And I thought, if this is what Clash Quest from Supercell had been, I would have been a lot more excited. I think it has legs. Depends what they do with that 7 million once they receive it. It still needs a lot of work. But it's something for me that was very, very different. So I got a little excited. I hope we see something from it. They must have had decent retention numbers to be able to raise that much money. Unless 7 million is mice nuts. And then I take back everything I just said.
No, that's a good raise. I just don't, the game is too early really to.
It's super early.
Yeah. So we'll see.
7 million in seed is pretty nice. It's not 55 that Spike raised.
Yeah,
right. It's possible maybe it has a soft launch somewhere under a different title that has bigger numbers and bigger metrics, because 8,000 downloads is not a lot to prove 6-month retention off of.
I mean, I've done soft launches with like, 1,500 just to get a retention number from specific countries. I mean, you could do 3,000. At least gives you an early indication. I don't know if you could raise on that, but I could certainly ask for UA investment on that.
Right. And the question is, was that 8,000 over time or 8,000 all concentrated in September, basically?
That's since September.
So Akin Babaget, who's the founder of Triple Dot, and he set up the Arcadia Gaming Advisors. Now that we cover the investments, I think I see him every week in like 5 different investments. He raised 100 million. I think he's gone like through 50 million already.
Yeah, he's really been active. Like I've actually heard people talk about him like independently about like him being everywhere. So
yeah, because he was in the dream in like early rounds.
Money burns a hole in your pocket. That's what I tell myself when I go shopping.
Especially if you have 100 mil.
Not yet.